having fun. Now, a couple of comments from Scott Drew, one from Scott Drew and also one from Flo Thamba. They met with the media late yesterday evening after the tournament was released. And one of the questions was, Eric Kelly asked this question towards Scott Drew about what in the end does it mean that Baylor ended up being a number one seed?
Coach, you touched on it a few days ago when you guys were still not sure whether or not you would get a 1 seed. Now that you are a 1 seed, what does that confirm to you based on what you thought 2 or 3 days ago?
Well, first of all, probably a couple teams had to lose to help with that, and we couldn't control our own destiny. And you always like to do that rather than having to rely on other teams. But at the same time, I think you take a step back and say to be a number 1 seed, would be 3 years in a row. That's pretty impressive. So that means the guys have really done a great job in putting the program first. And now it's the best month of the year, and it's a time to put your best foot forward.
I love this true serum. He could have said a lot of things. You know, we are. Well, first of all, a couple of teams had to lose. And they were very fortunate. Friday, we were already on the air after that happened. A&M had beaten Auburn, so that's one out the window. The other one was Kentucky, lost to Tennessee. That's another one out the window. And then, wonder, what if Duke maybe makes a run? But all of the analytics, all the Ken Palm, all of the other bracketology, even had Duke won and beaten Virginia Tech, it was not enough to get them to a number 1 seed, although they were a number 2 seed and were arguing why weren't they a number 3 seed. So they did get fortunate. Can they reset, as he's mentioned? Can they reset, not similar at all than last year, even though they got knocked out early by Oklahoma State? Can they reset? And a note about L.J. Cryer here in 1 second. You guys discuss, can they get back to who they were right before the Big 12 tournament when they had won games against Kansas and Texas?
Yeah, I absolutely think that they can. And I think part of it is that now you're not going to see a team that knows you. You wouldn't see them until the Final Four. Potentially. Or I guess you could maybe see Texas. I'm just not predicting that out. So you can only see one team that knows you potentially, and a lot has to happen for that to go on. And look, even if it is North Carolina on Saturday after Norfolk State, that's a team that hasn't seen you. That's also a team in a league that's not as good as yours. And that's just a fact in the ACC and the Big 12. So, yeah, I think the part of the problem with the Big 12 is and we've talked about it before, they have a lot of really good coaches, some great coaches, and they know everybody. Oklahoma and Porter Moser, you're going to play them a third time and expect that to go really well? You're not going to. That's just how it is. And, you look back at the games they've lost outside of a blowout to Kansas and, kind of a really bad last 5 minutes against Alabama. They're in every single game. So I expect them to be who they are and be a 1 seed. Now, when you have to roll through the next weekend, if it's probably going to be UCLA and then Kentucky, it's tough. But you never know what's going to happen. It's the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they can get it together, but they're going to have to play a lot better than they did against Oklahoma, that's for sure. If they come out and a team's shooting hot like that, they better have some type of an answer for it or it's going to be a quick exit. But I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting them to, be around past the first weekend. But, their draw's tough. Like we were saying, though, everybody's got a tough draw. If you keep winning games, it's going to be tough. But, yeah, I'm not too worried about this. I was disappointed in the Big 12 tournament showing. I don't know about you guys. I understand all the arguments about getting rest and things like that. But I don't think that they went into that tournament thinking, all right, we're just going to show up and get rest.
I agree.
I think they showed up to play basketball and try to win a game. And, I mentioned in an article today, the one thing Scott Drew and them have not done is win a Big 12 tournament title. That's one thing that has eluded them. And it's not, and I also said in my article, I would never, ever sacrifice going balls to the wall for a tournament title that would just ultimately hurt you in the main tournament. So in this year's case, I'm kind of okay with it because they are so beat up, but, that would be something nice to see them contend for, in the future. But, yeah, they can get it right, but they just, there's no room for error. That's the thing. They don't have room for any more injuries. They don't have room for any more, nights where they're 3 of 25 shooting 3. That's going to get you sent home. So, yeah, they can absolutely do it. They can win this whole damn thing. But, are they ready to do that? And are they well-equipped enough to be able to put on game after game after game after game over the next month to be able to do that? That's what I don't know. That's what no one knows right now.
And there's no question that you start. I saw that immediately. Well, this is going to be okay.
It's a good thing. It's like no, it's not.
Now, last year they had knocked out by Oklahoma State, who was good. They had Cade Cunningham, beat them. We know that. It gave Baylor a different type of rest because they stayed in Kansas City in the bubble that was there and then moved straight to Indianapolis. But believe me, they didn't want to lose that game either. No. They were able to get an extra day or two of practice in, and I'm not so sure really they got an extra day or two of practice losing on Friday because they had to decompress throughout the weekend. Now, Flo Thamba, they need him to be who he was against Kansas. They need him when he made that stretch of about 2 or 3 games. Now, that doesn't mean you're always going to get that because somehow or another, they're going to meet some big, tall dudes. Norfolk State has a large player inside. I was talking to King McClure earlier today. They've got a big. We know others have. North Carolina's got somebody. Purdue has, what is it?
Ivy.
No, Ivy's a guard forward. Edney, who's a big, tall drink of water. So there's tall players in this bracket, but everyone's going to have somebody with length. But here is Flo Thamba. When I asked him what did he learn about his team despite how they went out in the Big 12 tournament, how they put themselves in this position.
Flo, what have you learned about yourself, but also your teammates as you have had to go through this grind of depth and injuries and been resilient as you've been?
And I've learned a lot about myself. One of the biggest things I learned is just my ability to be a leader on this team. And this has basically been the work upon, just being here for so long, and also, looking at all the predecessors who were in the past, from Freddie, from Mark, from Dave John, all the guys, even came all the way back to my freshman year with King McClure and Jake Lindsey. Now I've been blessed, to be a part of different teams and also just have an opportunity to just learn a lot from them. And I've learned a lot to just, from the stuff done on the court and even just being a better leader off the court, helping the guys, fill up in different roles and stuff. So I just feel like I'm growing a lot. It's 4 years is a long time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they have had some adversity, not just last year with COVID, but also this year with the injuries. And I'll have it again, the LJ. Let me give the LJ Crier note. This is from Ashley Hodge in the premium section. This is from yesterday evening. He says, since nearly every basketball thread, the question is asked about LJ. Truly going to be a game time decision, as we always have heard. But the plan for a while has been to have him practice full speed and then play in the NCAA tournament. If he doesn't have a setback, he should play. But he's been out for such a long time, I would keep my expectations low for any kind of his contributions. And I can see that. If he plays, that's a bonus of 5 minutes or maybe a couple of threes, if in fact that could even happen. But that's kind of just to give you an update, because I know I've been asked about that over the last couple of 3 days.
In close games, that's going to matter, those minutes that he could get if he does get them. I want to harken back to something that Flo Thamba said real quick. He mentioned going all the way back to Jake Lindsey and King McClure. I think those two guys who in the annals of statistics are not going to, when people talk about the people who changed the Baylor program, that may not come up a lot when they talk about it, King and Jake. But Jake and King were such smart basketball minds, that basketball nerds, whatever you want to call them, junkies, gym rats, that's what they were. And not that wasn't the culture before, but they put so much of that sauce on top of it that dictated where they got to last year. Jake and King were such a huge part of that, even though they weren't on that team. The attitude was different. When you have guys like Freddie Gillespie and Jared Butler and Davion Mitchell and Maceo Teague come in, who all help you also change the trajectory of the program, because those were the leaders on the team. So you couldn't have a different attitude than Jake and King. Otherwise, you weren't going to fit in, and it wasn't going to work. And so those guys were so in lockstep mentally with Coach Drew and the assistants that it has just trickled down now for 5 years after they've been gone.
Well, I think you're right. You have not just what they did last year or what they've done this year. There's been a history. In fact, both teams, both men and women, have had their attrition and for various reasons, and also depth issues this year. So Baylor, Kansas, Arizona, Gonzaga, the top seeds. In the Baylor region, Baylor, Kentucky, Purdue, and UCLA are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Baylor was number 1 for a while this year. They were 15-0. Kentucky, I think at one point, I'm not sure if they ever got to 1, but I think they did. Purdue was 1. And there were a lot of thoughts early in the year that they might have been the best team in the country. UCLA, who made the great run at Gonzaga last year, heavily favored to be a Final Four type team. This year, they're in it. Baylor's played St. Mary's before in the past.
So they played on their way to losing to Duke?
Absolutely. And so they're a 5 seed. We know what they did at Gonzaga. Texas at 6. Their opening game against Virginia Tech, who's red hot, could be interesting there. The Racers of Murray State, a 7 seed, in North Carolina. The Tar Heels are a number 8 seed as well. Shaka Smart is also in that same region, as far as in the East region. So that's where we have with a lot of that. Now, Evan.